Hello again. My name is Jack, and this is Violence in Video Games. I'm going to show you some things that we've been working on in our game History of Dragosa, which is a text-based choose-your-own-adventure game. I'm about to show off an animation, some systems we're working on for saving the game, and some things like that. Some design discussion while we're at it. Why not? If you're interested in History of Dragosa, please wishlist the game on Steam. It's currently taking in wishlist on Steam right now, and there'll be a link for that in the description below. But let's get to the video. Okay, so this is the new devlog here, kind of updating on what we've been doing, what we've been up to, or at least some of it anyways. And that is that we have kind of improved the save game functionality of the game. We actually could already save the game, but this is more about the user experience of that. Clicking on a button, which again we already had a button, and just kind of adding that layer of feeling and expression of saving a game. And that may sound kind of weird, but that's kind of a part of game development where you have to kind of get, communicate to the player that something is happening, and that's every step of the way of every aspect of the game. So when it comes to saving, you click on the save game button, and it has to feel good. It has to feel like the player trusts that the game is actually saving the progress. And so that means there has to be some sort of feedback. There also has to be some input, because we want players to be able to name their books by saving them. So there has to be some explanation of what the save file name will be. It'll be the name of the book, and it needs to communicate to the player what's happening. I'm kind of repeating myself a little bit, but it's important. It's a significant part of user experience in gaming, and this is just a small portion of that. Anyways, like I said, we could already technically save the game, but there was some little bit of things that had to be fixed with that. But now it saves and it feels a lot better. I can show you a video of what that looks like here. And yeah, it's not a whole lot there. It seems like that should be done pretty quickly, but the reality is we don't really have like a lot of free time. We work on something for maybe an hour after work if we're lucky, depending on how late we end up working. And we do have other responsibilities, so this isn't a full-time thing for us when it comes to working on games. So we get done what we can throughout the week. Overall, this took about maybe 4 hours, maybe 5 hours, but that ended up taking almost the entire week. And then, of course, I spent a little bit of time making this animation of this little save icon, which I can show you a video of me making that actually. So here I have already made like a frame, like a wire frame of the intended animation. I do some changes to it here during the course of this little video here. But this is just a general idea. I made like an hourglass of some kind, and it has got these like little spokes there on the end. You can kind of see it's just going to contain some sand, and it's just going to be flipping over and over again. And that, I mean, I feel like that communicates something. Time is passing, so obviously, and it's going to say that it's saving now. The thing is, I kind of changed my mind to how I want to animate it, and how I want some of this to do. So it's going to change a little bit over the next couple minutes, but we can watch my kind of like thought process and design process of that. I like to start with a wireframe, typically with some kind of line tools and things like that, because I'm not super great at keeping my balance while I'm drawing, I guess I could say. My lines aren't perfect, so I like to use the more like tools that are provided to kind of do that. And then I just grab a couple of colors that I think might fit or describe the item. So in this case, it's like a glass. So glass is usually clear and translucent, but sometimes it has like a bluish hue to it. That was my thought process there. And it's good to have a couple different colors or shades of a color when you're making something. Uh, and so you either need to outline it with a lighter color or outline it with a darker color. And right now I've done this kind of lighter color, and I'm testing out a different shade, and I'm realizing that I probably want to flip this because it doesn't quite look right uh, with a darker infill as opposed to uh, the other way around. And so I decided to change that right away. I know I'm going to want the lighter color on the inside, and it has a look of glass, at least to some degree. And when you're working with small resolution, you gotta kind of cut some corners. You have to convey shapes, and you can't really draw concrete shapes because they take up too many pixels. So I have these like side spokes that might be a part of an hourglass, but you notice that the lines don't connect. That's just kind of like an old. I take that. I've noticed that. I guess I should say I haven't really learned that from anyone specifically, but I've noticed that in a lot of drawings, pixel art, but also in like comic book strips, or I'm sorry, like newspaper comic strips. They will tend to not fully connect certain lines, and it kind of conveys exactly what you want without actually making like the perfect structure. I guess it's hard to explain, but I hope it makes some sense. I think it's about this point when I realized that what I actually want with the animation is for the sand to transfer and then to flip. I don't need it to just flip constantly. I can spend a few frames of the hourglass just dripping sand from one section to the next. Anyways, I'm going through and recoloring the wireframe, and giving it its final shape and design. A lot of saving when it comes to saving in a game, there's a lot that goes into that. I mean, obviously, there's like I said before, the user experience, the feedback, to make sure that the player feels like it's actually saving, because the player has to really trust you to handle, because they've just tried to accomplish something and they don't want to lose that progress. So they definitely want that assurance that something is happening, that it's working properly, and all that. And then at the same time, if something isn't working properly, they also want to know that. They want to know, as much as it might still frustrate them, they can at least know for sure something failed, as opposed to thinking it succeeded, but then it didn't. So there's a lot that goes into communicating, basically, what I mean, when it comes to something like saving. And really, everything needs proper communication, but saving is just a very trust-based kind of function that games have had to handle over the years. Actually, it's a pretty interesting uh, thing to like dive into, how different games have handled saving screens, just saving in general, because they all have like different methods for storing the data. But it's also the whole experience of saving a game is explored throughout gaming in lots of different ways. So there's not a perfect way to do it, I don't think, but there's definitely better ways and worse ways to do it. So, anyways, we'll just kind of continue watching how we're doing this artwork. This is going to replace the mouse cursor for a short period of time while the game is saving. Actually, if we want to be completely honest, the saving takes place over the course of maybe less than a quarter of a second. It happens nearly instantaneously. In fact, the first time I did it, even though I wrote that it was going to save and I knew what was happening behind the scenes, it really didn't feel like it was saving. It had a pretty bad feeling towards it. And this was why I decided I needed to add a little bit of a delay, some feedback of saying, look, we're saving the game, this animation is going to play, and the player knows for sure it is saved. Obviously, there's lots of different ways that this can be handled. Some people do it with just like a little icon in the corner of the screen, uh, and in games that require more data to be transferred to like a save location, um, they they just naturally take longer. They just naturally take more time to do. Um, and a lot of simple games don't require very much time to save. So adding this feedback was I felt was important. Yeah, you'll have to let me know if it seems over engineered. Pixel art is something I'm still studying, still trying to, obviously trying to improve. But it's also not the only art style that I'm interested in. It's just the one that I tend to go to a lot. Maybe that's because of the art programs that I use. It just feels a little more natural to do pixel art for me. But I would like to explore other types of game art in the future, including higher resolution images, but also even 3D potentially in the future. Actually, speaking of art directions and art design, we have some interesting ideas for some future projects that we're kind of working alongside of. I mentioned that this took me about a week, but that also included um, a few other a few other things that we're kind of working on behind the scenes that I hope to be able to show soon. Not right now, but soon for sure. When you're working with so few frames, you kind of have to make large shifts in the from cell to cell. Uh, you could do some more in between work, which would be just additional frames. But as long as it communicates well what's happening, it's not necessary. And actually, cutting out frames can sometimes make the animation look better, even though it's a little bit more extreme. Those extreme movements can feel almost kind of cartoony, which can also be entertaining to look at. I've definitely not done any like subtle coloring for this, but I think the main core concept is that it's supposed to look very uh, very obvious, the item that you're looking at, because you're only going to be able to see it for a couple of seconds, and especially when you first look at it, it's going to you might be like, what's happening? And you need to just immediately know this is for sure an hourglass and it's rotating. I feel like the final animation turned out pretty well. I know I'm going to need a few frames of sand dropping into the bottom portion of the hourglass, and I'm just kind of positioning it based on a certain pixel width. I believe it's 22 pixels wide is how wide. It doesn't need to be necessarily that wide, but I used that size initially, so that's I'm just trying to keep with that spacing. And now it's just going to be mostly changing or shifting color around between the sand dropping from one side to the next. I'm just double checking the spacing and making sure it is the same all the way across for each frame. It's going to make animating much easier because we have been using a framework that uses C++ for our game project here, but and so the animation is kind of the animation system is kind of hand rolled, and we can actually get into a little bit about the differences between using a more traditional engine, like say like something like Unity, or using a framework like what we're currently using, which is called Raylib. And the interesting parts are that you can kind of control like which libraries and how big the package size is and things like that much easier with a framework, because you just decide exactly what goes into it. Obviously the obvious downsides are going to be that you have to write so much more of the process yourself, or import libraries that handle that, and then of course you have to learn those libraries, and anyone who's had to do that knows that there's a little bit of an initial headache for that anyways. So it's a trade-off you have to make, and you have to decide which is more valuable to you. Right now we're really enjoying Raylib, but we're also dabbling with some of the more conventional engines, just to see how those fit our style, fit our output, our work, things like that. I'm just trying to add a little bit of like lighting effect. I'm not sure if it pays off, but it's just a little something extra. It might be a little overboard, but I think it looks fine. Okay, so here we have the finished animation, and I can play that as soon as I put it into Sprite, which is another art program I have. I don't believe this is a free art program. I think you have to buy this, but it's one of the few art programs you can purchase, which is oddly enough becoming a rarer sight these days. So instead of a subscription service or something like that, you can just actually have it. Yeah. Anyways, I'm just going to quickly import these frames really quick and play through them. Yeah, there you go. Let's just hit play here and see what it looks like at full speed. I think that communicates animation rather well. I think it clearly shows up that that is an hourglass. So that's going to be good feedback for the player. Okay, here's a popular YouTuber way of explaining things. So how about I go ahead and give that a try? We talked about UI in something like Unity. You could create a button. Is this the most efficient way to do this? Maybe. Okay, so you've got a button. You got a little to indicate that there's some depth to the button. Anyways, it has a kind of relative position. It's actually going to be here in the top corner. Right. Anyways, the idea is that if this whole screen was like a window or a panel of some kind that would be relatively placed somewhere in the scene, you could position this button precisely here. And in something like Unity, there might be even a prefab of the functionality of something like a button, because it's so common to gameplay elements, that you could position a button and it would be relative to the panel. And then if you were to move the panel around to fit you wouldn't have to worry about repositioning this button, because it would handle that for you, because it would be relative to its kind of like parent object and things like that. And then clicking on the button would do something, and you can define what that something is externally, or however you want to do that. And so if we wanted a button that said, we can Okay. So if we wanted the button to say like save, you can tell I'm not very good at this. Yeah. So if we wanted the button to save, uh, here we go with a little smiley face. Okay. So if we wanted the button to save, we could just change the functionality of this button. We would just have it type out the text save, and well, wow, that's just a lot of stuff that's happening behind the scenes. You may not think that, but let's take a look maybe at what currently we have to do, which which some of you might say this is like very archaic, and we're going out of our way to make this difficult, but it's not. It's really not that difficult. It really wasn't the time cost for this project or for this past week. It wasn't the thing that spent the most time that I spent the most time on was actually getting it to do kind of interact with all the other systems in the game, which included something like repositioning all the books, for instance, getting the information into the JSON file, which we're currently using for our save system, and learning the choices that have been in the book up to that point. So there was a lot more to going into saving than just noting something down or clicking some buttons. Though I will say positioning and things like that did take some time. It was a part of it. So for instance, we have this kind of key press system, and it kind of like goes through the controls, and it looks for if enter is pressed. We need to understand what state of the keyboard in the game is it currently in. If it's taking in save game input and things of that nature, and it needs to acknowledge not just the text that is being currently inputted, but it also needs to check it against other books, because we don't want to overwrite another book by having the same name. There's just a lot of little edge cases that kind of go into ensuring not only does it work, but it continues to work and has expected behavior and things like that. Now we have some kind of UI elements and systems that we're in the process of connecting together in a way that it could be called from a scene and potentially be reinstantiated in other ways. So it's currently just like hyper exposed functionality that doesn't really know how it relates to other things. So let me explain that a little bit better. We have this something like a panel, right? So I've created a save panel. So we need to set its size, and then we have some input. We have an element inside of it, which is an input box, which is something you'll see as typing in the letters and characters for the thing, and then it has its own string or character pointer that it can remember, so that it can text can be inputted and deleted and all that kind of stuff. But it also has a position, and now it should ideally be relative to the parent panel, but currently it's not. So if I move or reposition the panel, I also have to kind of like do that with all of the elements. And that's like a thing that we want to improve in as far as like the panel system goes in our game. But as I've already stated, engines like Unity have this as like a solved problem. That there's obviously other hangups that a system or an engine like Unity has, but there are things that it does properly. So there's kind of like it's a trade-off, like I mentioned earlier. I also have a font size that gets set. Again, this could be exposed to some sort of external, maybe like I'm GUI, like an immediate mode GUI engine. But right now it's all done programmatically, and it works fine. It's not too much of a hassle. And then again, we have the buttons again, and the buttons they're not relative. So, and we have like a tray of buttons. That's how we get our naming structure here. So they have a tray of buttons, and we reposition them here. And if you notice, it would be nice if they were just simply positioned relative to this, and we just position it one time. And while that is a little bit of a headache, but when it comes to like typing this out, it doesn't take very long. The problem is if every time we want to move it, we have to redo a lot of it. That's when it starts taking time. So it would probably be a good idea for us to go in and extend the functionality of these things so that they know, hey, I am a part of this panel. This is all kind of like obvious stuff, but again, it would be something I would not really be able to show you because it's not that interesting and it's not really specific to this game. And like I said, a lot of other engines, this is a solved problem. So this is not really a huge talking point, really. So I'm only bringing it up because this is what you're going to be like dealing with if you're ever rolling any of your own systems or engines. You're going to come across little problems like this that are going to be like a little time sink that adds up to a large time sink over the course of development. Anyways, let's take another look at what that save system looks like one more time. Okay, a lot of this is still being worked on, and earlier we saw, hello YouTube, right? Okay. Okay, ignore these buttons. Like I've said before, these, if you're part of the Discord, you'll know that you've probably seen some of this being worked on there. You should join the Discord. There'll be a link in the description below, by the way. Anyways, let's take a look at the save. Click here, the save icon. It's a little floppy disk kind of thing. Well, would you like to name your book? This choice is permanent. Okay, we still probably want like some sort of like underscore being drawn here so that you know that that's where the text cursor currently is. Maybe even have it blinking so that you know that. But for now, we'll say good enough. Okay. I'll click Save Game. And there's our little save icon. And it said saving game, please wait. There we go. We're back here. Now, like I said, that normally wouldn't take anywhere near that amount of time, but showing it off like that is our kind of like our feedback for the player. And just to show you again, now look, all these things have moved over. We have Hello YouTube as a book, and we have Good Enough as a book. This isn't exactly how this is going to work because once these are both the same story, that you'll get clogged up with the same book over and over and over again. If we have it precisely like this, we're kind of it's going to work a little bit differently, but for the most part, saving a game will look like this. And we have our little bookshelf here. You can pick characters, or you can pick a previously created book that you have saved. And as you can see, the name is currently displaying over here. We might put it a little bit closer to where your book is so you know you don't have to look back and forth like that. But there we go. So now it is saving. And that took, like I said, it took us about, 5-6 hours. I can't remember exactly how many, but since we have so little time to actually work on things, it ended up taking a full week. So that's just the way it goes sometimes. Sometimes you get some good progress, sometimes you get slow progress, but that's just the way it goes. Okay, so that's it for this video. We showed off how we're saving games now. And if you want to follow along with progress as we're going and not have to wait for another video, please be sure to join our Discord. The link is in the description below. And if you want to watch more videos like this, or if you like what we're doing here, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel here. Leave a like and a comment of anything you would like to see us do or show off next about our game. Do you want to see more animation? Do you want to see other systems that we're working on? In any case, if you want to stick around, please consider subscribing, and we'll see you next time.